Have you ever wandered through a city so rich with history that every stone beneath your feet felt like it carried the memory of 1,000 untold stories, a place where the air itself seemed to shimmer with quiet brilliance, waiting to be read? Tonight, I invite you to let your breath slow and your thoughts soften as we step into such a place. Close your eyes, if you wish, and allow the calm of this moment to gather gently around you, for we are about to walk through the sleeping streets of Florence, the city where the Renaissance first opened its eyes. Imagine yourself standing beneath the warm Tuscan night sky. The air is mild, touched by the faint aroma of cypress trees drifting down from the hills that cradle the city. A soft breeze moves along the Arno River, carrying the cool scent of water that has flowed through Florence for centuries. As you breathe in, the quiet hum of distant life settles into the background. Lanterns flicker along narrow stone streets, their golden glow brushing against the ancient walls of workshops, chapels, and small houses clustered together like old friends sharing secrets. The city is calm at this hour, yet it feels alive in a gentle, unhurried way. Wooden shutters are closed for the night, but through small cracks you can sense the glow of hearths still burning. Somewhere, a baker finishes kneading tomorrow's bread. Farther off, you hear the muffled clink of tools being carefully set aside. In an artist's studio where brushes and unfinished sketches wait patiently for the morning light, Florence rests, but it rests like a mind still dreaming, weaving images and ideas that will soon reshape the world. As you walk along a quiet street paved with uneven stones, you can feel the history beneath your steps. Your hand brushes the cool surface of a weathered wall, and its texture tells a story of centuries layered one upon another. Above you, rooftops tilt gently toward the sky, creating narrow corridors of shadow where the night settles softly. The scent of olive oil, warm bread, and fresh ink lingers in the air, reminders of a city built on craft, trade, and imagination. Ahead, the Arno glimmers with reflections of torchlight, stretching like a long ribbon of gold through the heart of Florence. You pause at the edge of the river. Its surface is calm, moving with a steady rhythm that feels almost like the slow heartbeat of the city itself. The Ponte Vecchio rises before you, its small shops closed for the night, each window dark, yet full of memories. You stand there for a moment, listening to the gentle sound of water brushing against the stone foundations. The quiet is soothing, a reminder of how deeply connected this place is to the flow of time. In this stillness, you can almost sense the future approaching. You can feel the presence of young minds who will soon pick up a brush, carve a block of marble, or open a book that challenges everything they once believed. Somewhere in the city, a child sleeps in a small room above a workshop, unaware that he will one day become an artist whose name the world will never forget. Somewhere else, a thinker studies by candlelight, preparing ideas that will shift the understanding of humanity. And in the calm glow of the night, Florence breathes with the quiet confidence of a place about to awaken into brilliance. As we begin our journey through these streets together, allow your thoughts to follow the gentle pace of your footsteps. Feel the warmth of the night air resting on your skin. Notice the faint echo of your steps along the stones polished by centuries. Let every sound and every flicker of light settle into your imagination. Tonight, we will travel back to the world before the Renaissance had a name, to understand the heartbeat of the city that would soon reshape art, knowledge, and the very idea of what it means to be human. Our path begins here, in the hush of Florence's nighttime embrace, where the first quiet stirrings of genius wait to be heard. Before the Renaissance had a name, Florence was a city shaped by rhythms that moved slowly through each day. Imagine the gentle sound of wooden wheels rolling across cobblestone streets in the early morning, long before the sun rises above the red-tiled roofs. The air is cool, touched by the faint musk of damp stone after the night's dew. Bakers begin to open their shutters, releasing the warm scent of rising dough into the stillness. Olive oil lamps flicker in narrow corridors, casting soft shadows that sway across old walls built from pale, porous stone. The city feels quiet, but full, as if every corner holds a story waiting for someone to pause long enough to notice it. As the light of dawn spreads across the Arno River, Florence wakes in different layers. Boatmen walk along the riverbank, checking nets and ropes, their hands accustomed to the rough touch of wet fibers and wood. Merchants begin to set up small stalls near the bridges, arranging bolts of cloth, jars of spices, and baskets of figs, in careful rows. The smells that drift through the streets blend into a tapestry of daily life. Fresh bread, warm milk, beeswax candles, and the earthy scent of wool dyed the night before. Each fragrance belongs to someone's craft, someone's livelihood, someone's quiet hope that the day will be generous. Be mid-morning, the city is alive with soft conversation. You can imagine stepping into a small square where a well stands at the center, its stone rim polished smooth by generations of hands. Women gather around it, filling clay jugs while speaking in gentle tones, their voices rising and falling like a chorus composed of everyday cares. Children run through the streets barefoot, weaving between carts and baskets, laughing with the energy that brightens even the most worn corners of the city. Above them, laundry flutters from windows, forming long ribbons of white fabric that sway with the breeze. As you continue walking along the narrow streets, you might pass the workshops that form the heart of Florence's identity. Carpenters plane wood with deliberate, steady motions that fill the air with the soft scent of sawdust. Tanners work with leather, stretching hides over frames and rubbing them with oils until they become supple to the touch. Goldsmiths sit at small benches, bending over tiny, intricate pieces, illuminated by the warm glow of oil lamps. These artisans do not know yet that their descendants will help shape an artistic revolution. For now, their world is measured in tools, textures, and the patient rhythm of hands repeating ancient practices. In the late afternoon, as the sunlight leans toward gold, Florence becomes quieter again. You can picture yourself climbing a gentle slope toward one of the city's hillsides, where tall cypress trees cast long, slender shadows across the earth. From here, the entire city lies beneath you, like a woven tapestry, its rooftops clustered closely together, its narrow arteries winding in every direction. The Arno glimmers like a soft ribbon of light running through its center. The city is beautiful in its own humble way, shaped more by necessity than by ambition. No grand domes dominate the skyline yet. No masterpieces hang in its chapels. Florence is still a place waiting to imagine what it might become. As evening approaches, the city settles into a peaceful cadence. The warmth of the day lingers on the stone walls, releasing a comforting heat as the sky deepens into a velvety blue. Families gather around simple wooden tables, eating meals prepared with ingredients grown in the surrounding countryside. The flavors are modest: bread dipped in oil, vegetables picked from nearby fields, perhaps a small piece of cheese or cured meat, shared carefully among many. Conversations flow softly, punctuated by gentle laughter or the distant toll of a bell marking the hour. When night falls fully, a quiet stillness returns to Florence. Oil lamps glow behind shutters, casting warm shapes that dance on the floors of small homes. The streets empty, leaving only the echo of a few footsteps or the soft call of someone returning home late from work. The river reflects the faint shimmer of torchlight from the bridges, drifting like a dream along the water's surface. And somewhere in the heart of the city, in a workshop, a young apprentice might still be awake, sketching a simple figure with charcoal on a scrap of parchment, unaware that such small gestures will one day help open the door to a new world. Florence, in this time before the Renaissance, is not yet a city of genius. It is a place shaped by ordinary lives, steady rhythms, and the quiet beauty of human craft. But beneath all this simplicity, something is beginning to gather. It is subtle, like the first breath of wind before a change in the weather, or the faint glow of dawn before the sun rises. The city does not know it yet, but its everyday world is the soil in which extraordinary ideas are about to take root. And as the last voices fade into the night, Florence rests once more, unaware that it sleeps on the edge of a transformation that will shape the future of art, science, and the human spirit. Before the Renaissance had a name, its earliest stirrings were not loud or dramatic. They arrive quietly, like faint ripples across still water, carried by merchants returning from distant lands, by scholars copying ancient manuscripts, and by conversations that drifted through Florence's narrow streets as naturally as the evening breeze. Change rarely begins with noise. More often, it begins with curiosity, and Florence, without fully realizing it, was becoming a city filled with people who were beginning to ask gentle but daring questions about the world. Imagine walking once more through the early morning streets, where the scent of bread and warm milk still lingers in the air. Near the market square, a group of traders gathers around crates filled with fabrics dyed in brilliant colors. Spices packed tightly into small linen bags and pieces of glassware shaped in patterns rarely seen in Florence before. These traders speak of places far beyond the hills, ports along the Mediterranean, the bustling markets of the East, and cities where scholars discuss the writings of forgotten Greek and Roman thinkers. Most passers-by nod politely and continue on their way, but a few pause a little longer, letting these stories settle into their thoughts, like seeds waiting for the right moment to grow. In a small workshop near the river, a scribe sits bent over a wooden desk, carefully copying the words of ancient philosophers whose ideas have not been widely read for centuries. The parchment smells faintly of ink and dust, and the only sound in the room is the quiet scratch of a quill moving steadily across the page. Once, these texts were treasures kept behind the walls of monasteries. Now, slowly, they are flowing back into the hands of curious minds. A young apprentice watches his teacher work and wonders what it might mean to see the world through the eyes of thinkers from long ago. Though he does not yet understand the significance of these manuscripts, he feels something stirring, a sense that knowledge is beginning to expand around him in gentle but unmistakable ways. As the day unfolds, Florence begins to hum with small exchanges that hint at a broader awakening. Merchants discuss new methods of accounting learned from distant trade partners. Artisans talk about unusual pigments brought from across the sea, pigments that shine with a depth of color they have never used before. Scholars gather in modest rooms, their conversations drifting through open windows and out into the city, carried by the soft afternoon air. They speak of the human mind, of logic, of beauty and proportion, of the possibility that life can be understood not only through faith, but also through reason and observation. These ideas are not yet widespread, but they move quietly from person to person, gathering strength. Meanwhile, within the city's wealthiest families, a new kind of ambition begins to take shape. The Medici, bankers whose influence is growing with each passing year, talk privately about the value of learning and the power of beauty. They discuss the works of poets and philosophers, and they begin to consider how art might reflect not only devotion, but also the human experience. Their conversations are calm and measured, yet beneath them lies a vision. The belief that Florence can become more than a center of trade, that it can become a place where thought and creativity flourish. As the sun lowers toward the horizon, casting the city in a warm, amber glow, the whispers of these new ideas settle into Florence like a soft, steady pulse. You can picture yourself standing on a quiet bridge, watching the light fade across the river. The Arno moves with its usual calm, yet tonight it feels different. There is a sense of something gathering beneath the surface, a gentle shift that is not yet visible but deeply felt. In the buildings that line the riverbank, candles are lit one by one, illuminating the faces of scholars, craftsmen, and merchants, who each in their own quiet way are beginning to imagine a world, slightly broader, slightly deeper, slightly more alive with possibility. As night falls completely, the city grows still once more, but the stillness feels charged with a quiet energy. The people of Florence go about their evening routines without realizing that the thoughts exchanged today will ripple outward through the coming years, shaping ideas, inspiring artists, and nurturing a new hunger for understanding. These whispers of curiosity and wonder are the first breaths of a transformation that will soon sweep across the entire city. For now, Florence rests, unaware of the brilliance that is beginning to bloom beneath its surface. Something new is gathering, and though no one can yet see its shape, its presence is unmistakable. It is the beginning of a rebirth, carried softly through the streets, like a quiet promise waiting for the right moment to unfold. The earliest steps of a revolution often appear so small that they seem almost ordinary. In Florence, the dawn of the Renaissance did not arrive with fanfare. It began quietly in workshops where the scent of wood shavings mixed with the earthy aroma of fresh pigments in the slow, deliberate movements of young apprentices standing beside their masters, and in the soft glow of morning light falling across unfinished panels. These first brushstrokes were not yet masterpieces, but they held a new kind of curiosity, a desire to see the world with clearer eyes and deeper understanding. Picture a narrow street where the doors of workshops stand open to let in the cool, early air. Inside one of these studios, a young apprentice grinds minerals into fine powder using a stone mortar. His movements are steady, practiced, and the sound of the grinding echoes softly around the room. The powder will soon become paint, mixed carefully with egg, yolk, or oil, depending on the technique the master has chosen for the day. The apprentice watches with quiet admiration as his teacher prepares a panel for an image that will be offered to a local chapel. The master studies the wooden surface with a thoughtful gaze, noticing how the light touches it, how the texture might guide the brush. Though he has painted many such scenes before, he approaches each new work with the patience of someone who believes that beauty deserves time. In another corner of the room, sketches lie scattered across a work. They show faces, hands, small scenes from daily life, things that once might have seemed too ordinary to capture. Yet now they are drawn with attention to shadow, proportion, and the delicate curve of a human expression. These drawings whisper of a shift in thought, the growing belief that the world itself, with all its imperfections and quiet wonders, is worthy of study. The artists of Florence are beginning to observe reality more carefully, trying to understand how bodies move, how light falls, how emotion reveals itself through the tilt of a person's head or the softness of their gaze. As the morning progresses, the workshop fills with a gentle hum of activity. Tools move methodically. Brushes are rinsed in small clay bowls, and the scent of linseed oil drifts through the air. You can almost imagine the soft murmurs shared between apprentices as they work. Questions about technique, about color, about whether a line appears too heavy or too faint. Their conversations are not yet bold or revolutionary. They are simple exchanges, filled with sincere desire to improve, to see the world differently, to create something that feels alive. Beyond the walls of this workshop, other studios are stirring with similar quiet determination. Sculptors stand before blocks of marble, running their hands over the cool surface before lifting their chisels. They feel the weight of the stone, the potential hidden within it. Each tap of the chisel sends a gentle vibration through the rock, releasing small fragments that fall to the ground like soft echoes. These sculptors begin to explore the human form with renewed attention, seeking the dignity and strength within each curve and contour. They study anatomy more closely, allowing their hands to follow the logic of muscles and bones rather than the rigid symbols of older styles. In another part of the city, architects begin tracing designs across parchment. Their lines are clean and measured, all drawn with a hope, rooted in proportion and harmony. They imagine spaces filled with light, buildings shaped with balance and clarity. These early drafts will one day become the foundations of new architectural wonders. But for now they exist only as quiet ideas, small visions waiting for the right moment to rise into stone and wood. Meanwhile, the Medici family and other patrons walk through these workshops with a mixture of curiosity and cautious hope. They observe the emerging talent and begin to understand that supporting these artists might shape the future of Florence in ways they cannot yet fully describe. Their presence brings a sense of possibility to the studios, like a warm breeze, entering through an open doorway. Artists lift their heads a little higher, aware that their work is being seen and valued, even in its earliest stages. As the sun shifts across the sky and shadows begin to stretch, the activity within the workshop slows. The apprentices clean their brushes carefully, wiping away the last traces of pigment. The masters step back from their work, examining progress with thoughtful eyes. Some pieces will be continued tomorrow, others will be set aside for days or weeks, until inspiration returns. The air is filled with the quiet satisfaction of a day's effort, the sense that something meaningful is beginning to take shape, even if its final form remains distant. When evening falls, Florence seems to exhale in a long, hintly breath. The streets grow quieter, the lanterns are lit, and the scent of warm meals fills the air once more. But within many of the workshops, the faint glow of candlelight remains as a few artists linger, unable to step away from the thoughts still forming in their minds. They hold charcoal sticks in their hands, tracing new ideas in the margins of their sketchbooks. They pause to study the way the candlelight casts shadows across the room, noticing details they had overlooked earlier in the day. In these quiet moments, they nurture the beginnings of a new vision, unaware that their simple observations will soon mark the first steps of a transformation that will resonate through centuries. Florence, at this delicate moment in time, is a city learning to see. These first brushstrokes, these quiet experiments and humble beginnings, form the earliest heartbeat of a new world. The Renaissance is not yet fully awake, but its eyes are opening, and its light is starting to gather. Florence was never a city that stayed still for long, even before the Renaissance fully took shape. Its streets carried the restless energy of people who lived closely, worked tirelessly, and dreamed quietly. But now, something subtle had begun to shift. The small sparks of curiosity and creativity ignited in workshops were spreading outward, touching merchants, scholars, craftsmen, and families. The city, once moving at the steady pace of everyday life, started to hum with a deeper, more intricate rhythm, as if waking to a possibility it had not yet understood. Imagine yourself stepping out onto a sunlit street in the late morning. The air is warm, filled with a bright clarity that makes colors appear richer and shadows sharper. The smell of leather from the tanner's quarter mixes with the sweet aroma of honey pastries cooling on windowsills. People move through the streets with gentle determination, carrying baskets, tools, and folded fabrics. Their footsteps echo softly between the tall stone buildings, creating a steady pulse that seems to guide the pace of the day. As you follow the path toward the marketplace, you notice groups of artisans gathered at the entrances of their workshops. They exchange quiet observations about new techniques. Pigments are tools that have suddenly appeared in Florence, thanks to expanding trade routes. Some speak of mathematical ideas that might help them understand how to create proportion in their images, or carve deeper realism into their sculptures. Others discuss stories brought back by travelers' dailies of architecture in distant cities, of statues uncovered outside ancient temples, or of scholars in other lands studying the human body with renewed attention. These conversations are small in scale, but they carry an undercurrent of excitement, like threads slowly weaving a new tapestry. Nearby, the guilds, those powerful groups that shape the city's economy, begin to sense these changes as well. Meetings grow slightly longer, discussions slightly more animated. The cloth merchants talk about colors that behave differently under certain light. Metalworkers examine tools from foreign markets with a mixture of curiosity and caution. Even the bakers experiment with new shapes or decorations for their breads, inspired by patterns they see forming in the city around them. Florence, once predictable in its routines, is opening itself to new ideas in ways both subtle and profound. As you continue walking, passing the shadow of tall buildings that seem to lean gently inward over the street, you approach the homes of families whose influence reaches far beyond their doors. The Medici household is one of them. Servants move quietly in and out, carrying letters, ledgers, and parcels. These families, with their wealth and growing intellectual interests, began to imagine Florence not only as a center of commerce, but as a place where beauty and knowledge might flourish. Behind closed doors, they speak in calm voices about supporting young artists, funding new projects, or inviting scholars to discuss ideas from ancient texts. They do not yet realize how significantly their choices will shape the future, but they are already planting the seeds of a cultural transformation. In the heart of the city, near the cathedral whose dome has not yet been raised, groups of citizens gather to talk about the changes they notice. Some watch the new energy with quiet wonder, while others look on with uncertainty. They are unsure whether these shifts will bring prosperity or disruption. But as they speak, the bells in the distance toll a soft, resonant sound that seems to wash their uncertainty in a feeling of peace. Florence has always been a place of ambition, and now it is becoming a place of vision as well. During the afternoon, when the sunlight drifts gently across the rooftops, the streets become busier. Artists carry wooden panels through the crowds, careful not to let their freshly prepared surfaces touch anything. Sculptors push carts filled with stone fragments. Apprentices hurry with jars of pigment wrapped tightly in cloth. The city feels like a living organism, with each person a part of its heartbeat. Even the river moves with new intensity, its surface rippling beneath small boats delivering goods from the countryside. The water glimmers with shifting colors, as if reflecting not just the sky, but the growing imagination of the city's people. As dusk approaches, Florence slows once more, but now the quiet feels different from before. It is not the silence of a city at rest, but the pause between breaths of something that is gathering momentum. Lanterns shine in workshop windows long after the sun has set, revealing silhouettes of artists still at work. Families talk softly during their evening meals, sharing stories of unusual murals appearing in chapels or sculptures taking shape in public squares. The city is beginning to pay attention, to notice how its identity is evolving. When night finally settles over Florence, the air cools and the streets empty. But the city does not truly sleep. Somewhere, a young painter lies awake, thinking about how to capture the softness of candlelight on a human face. The sculptor imagines a figure emerging from a block of marble, the form not yet real but already alive in the mind. A scholar recites lines from an ancient text, pondering ideas that once felt distant but now seem full of meaning. These quiet moments, scattered like stars across the sleeping city, pull Florence gently into motion. The Renaissance has not yet arrived, but Florence is already moving toward it, carried forward by countless small choices and dreams. The city breathes with new purpose, shaped by hands, minds, and hearts that are beginning to work in harmony. A transformation is underway, not loud, not forced, but steady and deeply human, rooted in the simple desire to understand the world anew. As Florence drifted deeper into this gentle awakening, a new kind of tension began to settle over the city. It was not loud or hostile, nor did it shake the streets with conflict. Instead, it whispered through workshops, lingered in the corners of guild halls, and followed artists as they walked along the narrow bridges. It was the quiet rivalry that grows naturally wherever talent begins to bloom. Florence was becoming a city of extraordinary minds, and even in the calmest hearts, the desire to create something worthy of remembrance began to stir. Imagine a morning when the sun rises slowly over the terracotta rooftops, casting soft golden light into the windows of artist studios. Inside one workshop, a painter stands before his canvas, studying the way the early light touches the folds of a garment he is trying to capture. His brush pauses in the air as he considers whether his rival across the city might find a more graceful way to paint the same scene. He does not resent this rival, but he feels the gentle push of comparison, the pulse of ambition that beats quietly beneath every stroke of the brush. Competition, in this moment, is not an enemy. It is a silent companion that invites him to push further, to see more clearly, and to work with renewed purpose. Across the city, another artist begins his day in a sculpturesque courtyard, filled with the cool scent of freshly cut marble. He runs his hand along the surface of a block, his fingers tracing the faint lines where he imagines a figure might emerge. He knows that others are attempting similar works, sculptors whose names are spoken softly with admiration in Florence's taverns and guild meetings. When he lifts his hammer and chisel, the first tap against the stone echoes like a heartbeat. With each strike, he feels both the weight of expectation and the thrill of possibility. These feelings mix within him in a way that is neither overwhelming nor frightening, but quietly exhilarating. Throughout the city, these rivalries weave themselves into the rhythm of daily life. They appear in the passing glances exchanged between artists when they cross paths near the market. They linger in the silent moments when a painter tilts his head to examine a new fresco unveiled in a chapel. They surface in the conversations of apprentices who whisper about techniques they have glimpsed in other workshops, wondering what secrets lie behind the closed doors of their competitors. Yet there is a softness to all of this, a mutual awareness that everyone involved is part of something larger than themselves. In the guild halls, discussions become more animated, but remain respectful. Masters describe their latest commissions with humility, though beneath their words lies an unspoken desire to create work that will draw the city's admiration. Some envy the opportunities granted to others, but even this envy feels restrained, softened by the understanding that Florence is thriving, that the growing attention to art benefits them all. A single new idea introduced by one artist can ripple outward, inspiring dozens more. Rivalry, in this context, becomes a kind of shared fire, warming rather than burning. These tensions are not only external, they live within the artists as well. Many wake in the middle of the night, lying in the dim glow of a dying candle, asking themselves whether they are worthy of the ideas they hope to express. Some fear that their hands may falter, or that their understanding of the world is still too limited. Others worry that their work will be overshadowed by the brilliance of their peers. Yet in the midst of these doubts, something beautiful grows, a deeper sense of purpose, a desire not simply to compete, but to contribute to a moment of transformation that is slowly engulfing the city. As the day unfolds, the energy of these quiet rivalries fills Florence's streets. Artists move with a steady sense of direction, as though pulled forward by an invisible thread. Workshops glow with warm light late into the afternoon, revealing faces focused in silent concentration. New sketches begin to take shape, Colors are mixed with greater care. Stone is carved with more delicate precision. Each artist, aware of the others, pushes himself gently toward greater mastery. In the evenings, the soft glow of lanterns spills from taverns, where artisans gather to share a drink and talk in hushed tones about their latest work. A sculptor listens as a painter describes a challenge he faced earlier that day. A goldsmith offers a suggestion for a new technique he has been experimenting with. Beneath these conversations lies a shared truth. They are all striving toward something extraordinary, united by ambition, but softened by mutual respect. When night finally falls, and the streets grow quiet once more, Florence feels like a city wrapped in a deep, contemplative breath. The rivalries that move through it are not sharp or divisive. They are threads of energy woven carefully into the larger tapestry of its awakening. In the stillness of their rooms, artists continue to think about their work, imagining how they might shape light, stone, or pigment in a way that feels true to the world they see. Florence, in this delicate moment, becomes a place where competition is not a fracture but a guiding force. Each artist, motivated by the presence of others, moves a little closer to mastery. The city, filled with quiet ambition, takes another step toward the brilliance that soon will define its name. There are moments in a city's life when change becomes almost tangible, when the air seems to hold a quiet tension, as though waiting for something long imagined to finally take shape. In Florence, this turning point arrived not with a grand announcement, but with a gentle shift in the way its people saw the world. It came with the soft brilliance of the Tuscan light falling upon the city's walls, illuminating details that had always been there but had never been truly noticed. It came with conversations that began softly and ended with someone realizing that their thoughts were not the same as they had been the day before. Imagine a late afternoon when the sun hangs low above the rolling hills. Its golden rays drift across the rooftops, touching the city with a warm, glowing tenderness. The streets are bathed in a light so pure that it seems to reveal the texture of every stone, every carved arch, every curve of a wooden shutter. This light, familiar and constant for centuries, suddenly feels different. Artists pause in their work to watch how it falls across a face, or how it transforms the color of a simple clay pot. Sculptors step outside their workshops, holding fragments of stone up to the sky, fascinated by the way shadows soften and deepen under the sun's gentle touch. In these moments, the world begins to look new. One afternoon, in a modest room filled with the scent of parchment and aging books, a scholar and an artist sit together, leaning over a sketch of a cathedral dome that has not yet been built. Their voices are low, thoughtful, weaving together mathematics, geometry, and intuition. The artist runs his fingers along the lines of the design, imagining how such a structure might rise over the city, how it might catch the morning light, how it could become a symbol of Florence's growing curiosity. The scholar, with steady patience, explains how ancient thinkers once understood proportion and balance. This conversation, gentle and unhurried, marks a turning point. It is not just a discussion of architecture. It is the realization that beauty can be shaped through reason as well as imagination. Not far away, in a workshop overlooking the river, a painter stands before a panel and considers how to capture depth and space in a way no one has fully achieved before. He experiments with the placement of lines, with the way angles pull the eye inward, with the relationship between objects near and far. His apprentices watch quietly, sensing that they are witnessing something subtle but important. They see the artist pause, breathe deeply, and then place a single line upon the panel. It is a small gesture, barely noticeable to anyone who might pass by, yet it marks the birth of perspective as we understand it today. In that quiet stroke, a new world begins to open. In another studio, a sculptor carves with greater intention, studying the human body not as a symbolic form but as something real, complex and alive. He traces the curve of a shoulder, the angle of a hip, the gentle twist of a torso. His tools move with a rhythm guided not only by technique but by a desire to capture the truth of the human experience. Around him, fragments of marble catch the warm afternoon light, casting soft shadows across the floor. Beneath the earth, he feels a shift, a sense that he is no longer merely shaping stone but shaping understanding itself. Meanwhile, in the halls of the Medici home, a decision is made. The family agrees to support a new project, one that seems bold, yet full of promise. They speak of Florence as a place where knowledge and beauty should not be hidden but shared. Their voices remain calm, but the weight of their choice carries through the city. Artists learn of this support and feel something steady within them settle into place. The knowledge that someone believes in their vision becomes a quiet encouragement, a warmth that lingers long after the conversation is ended. During these days, Florence begins to move in a new direction, though its steps remain soft and measured. People walking through the streets notice small changes. A fresco that feels deeper than those before it. A sketch pinned in a workshop that seems to breathe, with life a building whose arches curve with a grace that feels new. These details may be subtle, but together they create a sense that the city is shifting, opening itself to a broader world of ideas and possibilities. As night approaches, the Tuscan sky turns a deep Antelebioli. The last rays of sunlight stretch across the hills, brushing the tops of cypress trees and shimmering faintly on the surface of the Arno. Florence grows quiet, as it often does at this hour, but beneath the stillness lies a soft excitement. People move through the streets with thoughts that feel brighter than before. Artists return to their homes, carrying sketches tucked beneath their arms, their minds glowing with new visions. Scholars walk slowly, their hands clasped behind their backs, pondering ideas that once felt distant but now seem within reach. And when the moon rises, washing the city in pale silver light, something becomes clear. Florence has crossed a threshold. The turning point is not dramatic or visible from afar, yet it has touched every workshop, every conversation, every quiet dream unfolding within the city's walls. The Renaissance is no longer a distant possibility. It has begun to take form, shaped by the hands and minds of those who dared to see the world with fresh eyes. In this gentle shift beneath the Tuscan light, Florence awakens into its destiny, guided by vision, curiosity, and the belief that beauty is something worth pursuing with devotion. As Florence continued its quiet rise toward brilliance, the path forward was not always smooth or filled with light. Every transformation carries its shadows, and for the artists, scholars, and craftsmen of the city, the pursuit of beauty often demanded more than they expected. Behind the glow of newly discovered ideas and the excitement of innovation lay moments of doubt, disappointment, and quiet loss. Yet it was within these moments, held gently in the privacy of workshops and minds, that some of the deepest lessons took root. Imagine a cool morning when the city is wrapped in a thin veil of mist. The river moves with a soft, steady whisper, its surface pale and shimmering like polished silver. In a studio overlooking the Arno, a painter stands motionless before a panel he has been working on for months. The colors that once excited him now feel uncertain beneath his gaze. He notices imbalances, mistakes, shadows that fall incorrectly. He lifts his brush, then lowers it again. The quiet weight of frustration settles across his shoulders like a heavy cloak. Behind him, an apprentice tidies the workspace in silence, sensing the artist's struggle but unsure how to help. Moments like this are not rare. Creation often demands a patience that wears thin, and even the most gifted minds can feel lost within their own visions. Across the city, a sculptor faces a different kind of loss. A nearly finished figure, carved with devotion from a block of marble, reveals a hidden fracture inside the stone. With one wrong strike, the form breaks apart in his hands. The sound of the cracking marble echoes through the workshop, sharp and sudden. For a moment, the sculptor stands completely still, staring at the piece he has poured countless hours into. The apprentices nearby lower their heads, respecting the silence that follows. Yet after a long breath, the sculptor touches the broken edge with quiet acceptance. He has learned through years of practice that even the most careful work can fall apart without warning. The lesson is painful, but it reminds him that creation is never entirely in his control. Meanwhile, scholars in cramped rooms filled with books and manuscripts face their own struggles. Candlelight flickers over pages worn thin from study as they work late into the night, trying to reconcile new ideas with ancient texts. Some theories crumble under scrutiny. Some problems appear impossible to solve. A scholar might spend hours tracing the same line of thought, only to realize that he has misunderstood a crucial detail. He rubs his tired eyes, feeling the loneliness that comes from chasing truths that remain just out of reach. Still, as the candle burns low, he feels a quiet determination rise within him. Each failure reveals a path he had not yet considered. These moments of difficulty ripple through Florence, touching every workshop and every mind. Artists struggle with commissions that demand more than they feel capable of giving. Families mourn the loss of loved ones to illness, reminding the city of its fragility. Young apprentices grow weary of their long days and slow progress, wondering if they will ever shape something worthy of admiration. Even patrons experience disappointment when works they expected to be magnificent fall short of their hopes. Yet beneath all this, the city holds steady, its heartbeat strong and resilient. In the midst of these challenges, something profound is happening. Artists begin to see their failures not as signs of weakness, but as invitations to grow. A painter who disliked the stiffness of a figure studies the human body more carefully, learning how muscles curve and how light rests on skin. A sculptor whose work shattered returns to the quarry, choosing his next block with greater sensitivity. A scholar who reaches a dead end in his research opens a different manuscript, discovering a passage he had never noticed before. Each loss becomes a lesson, each setback a quiet turning point. There are also moments of grief that linger more deeply. Families lose members to sickness, apprentices leave workshops out of necessity, and friendships fade under the strain of demanding work. These sorrows become part of the fabric of the city, giving it a depth that shapes both its art and its people. An artist who has experienced loss brings a new tenderness to the faces he paints. A writer, grieving someone dear, finds comfort in crafting words that soothe his own heart. Florence breathes in these emotions, allowing them to become threads woven through its emerging creativity. As days pass, small triumphs return. A painter steps back from a panel and sees that the color he struggled with has finally settled into harmony. A sculptor lifts a finished piece into the light and feels pride swell quietly within him. A scholar, after weeks of confusion, finally understands the idea that eluded him. These victories are gentle, almost private, but they bring a sense of renewal that softens the memory of past frustrations. When evening settles over Florence, the weight of the day begins to lift. Lanterns glow along the streets, casting warm reflections on the stone walls. Artists close their workshops, carrying with them the lessons learned, the sorrow felt and the small sparks of insight gained. They walk home with slow, thoughtful steps, their minds full yet peaceful. Even in silence, they know they are part of something larger than themselves, an unfolding transformation shaped not only by success, but also by struggle. As night deepens, the city exhales, releasing the tension of the day. The river reflects the moonlight in long, shimmering trails, moving steadily toward the sea. Somewhere, in a quiet room, a painter looks out of his window and watches the night settle over Florence. He thinks of the work that waits for him tomorrow, of the mistakes he will correct, the details he will refine, and the emotions he hopes to capture. He feels the weight of creation, but he also feels its promise. In these moments of loss and learning, Florence grows stronger. Its artists, scholars, and dreamers carry within them the quiet resilience that will allow the Renaissance to fully ignite. The city, shaped by both sorrow and hope, moves gently forward, guided by the belief that beauty is worth every effort, every doubt, and every tender step into the unknown. The quiet struggles, the long nights of study, and the countless hours spent shaping pigment, stone, and thought slowly began to bear fruit in Florence. What had once existed only as whispers, sketches, and hesitant experiments now emerged in fuller form, revealed in the soft glow of morning light and the murmured awe of those who witnessed them. The Renaissance was no longer a distant possibility. It was beginning to take shape in the everyday life of the city, woven gently into its streets, its churches, its workshops, and the minds of its people. Imagine walking through a calm Florentine morning as the sky shifts from pale lavender to a warm, luminous gold. The bells in distant towers ring softly, their sound drifting over rooftops and settling into the hearts of those just beginning their day. As you move through the streets, you notice something different, subtle at first, but unmistakable. New frescoes brighten the entrances of small chapels. They show figures with softer expressions, bodies that move with grace, and landscapes that extend far into space, as though inviting the viewer to step inside. People paused before them, taking slow breaths, their gazes lingering a little longer each day. In certain workshops, sculptors finish works that feel more alive than anything Florence has seen before. A marble figure stands in a courtyard, its form so natural that passers-by instinctively slow their steps, drawn by the delicate balance of strength and softness etched into the stone. The sculptor, quietly observing from the shade of his workshop door, feels both pride and humility. He understands that the hours he once spent lamenting broken stone and flawed attempts were the very steps that led him here. His work is not merely decoration. It is the expression of a deeper truth about the human spirit. Elsewhere in the city, painters reveal panels filled with vibrant color and unprecedented depth. Scenes once rendered symbolically now breathe with realism. Light seems to move across the surface of the paintings, illuminating faces with warmth and casting gentle shadows across folds of fabric. Apprentices watch as their masters unveil these works, their own hearts stirring with a quiet longing to create something that carries meaning. Patrons who once supported art out of duty now feel genuine admiration. They speak softly among themselves, knowing that Florence is changing in ways that cannot be undone. Scholars, too, discover the fruits of their labor. In small gatherings lit by windows open to the morning air, they share translations of ancient texts and new interpretations inspired by them. They discuss human potential, the nature of beauty and the pursuit of knowledge, with a clarity that feels both fresh and ancient. Young thinkers listen with wide eyes, sensing that these ideas are shaping not only their present, but the world they will inherit. A new understanding of humanity is forming, one that values reason, empathy, and the extraordinary capacity for growth. Inside the Medici Palace, the family continues to nurture this emerging brilliance. They host gentle conversations with artists, inviting them to share their visions and challenges. They fund new projects, not out of vanity but from a desire to see Florence flourish as a center of beauty and learning. Their halls fill with the works of those they support, painting, sculptures, and manuscripts that reflect the blossoming soul of the city. Servants carry messages to and from workshops, each note a quiet thread weaving together the community of creators who are reshaping Florence. As days pass, public spaces begin to transform. New facades rise, shaped by architects who dream of proportion, harmony, and light. Squares feel more open, more inviting. Even the shadows seem different now, softer against the walls that hold these fresh designs. People gather in these spaces, drawn not only by commerce, but by curiosity. They talked about the changes unfolding around them, their conversations filled with gentle wonder. Some try to understand the techniques behind the works they admire. Others simply enjoy the feeling that Florence is becoming something extraordinary. In the evenings, the city glows with a warmth that feels almost palpable. Lanterns flicker along streets where artists walk home after long hours of work. They carry with them the satisfaction of progress, the memory of challenges overcome, and the anticipation of new ideas yet to emerge. Conversations drift from open windows, discussions of color, form, philosophy, architecture. These voices blend with the murmur of the river, creating a soft chorus that lulls the city into a peaceful rhythm. And when night deepens, when the last glow of the day fades from the sky and Florence settles under the quiet embrace of darkness, something becomes clear. The legacy of the Renaissance is not built in sudden strokes, but in steady, tender accumulations. Every brushstroke, every carved line, every thoughtful conversation contributes to a growing vision that is slowly transforming the city. Florence, once humble and unassuming, is becoming a beacon, a place where beauty is shaped by human hands and ideas are treated as treasures worth protecting. The people of Florence may not fully grasp the magnitude of what they are creating, but they can feel it. They sense it in the way the light touches new works, in the way conversations linger a little longer, and in the way the city seems to breathe with renewed purpose. A legacy is emerging, quiet yet powerful, shaped by devotion, resilience, and the shared belief that the human spirit can rise toward something greater. As the years passed, and the first glow of the Renaissance matured into something steady and luminous, Florence found itself wrapped in a new relationship with time. The city had given birth to ideas, art, and architecture that would shape generations far beyond its walls. Yet everyday life continued with its gentle rhythms. The brilliance of the past did not fade. Instead, it settled softly into the stones beneath people's feet, into the arches above their heads, and into the quiet pulse of the city. Florence, became a place where time did not simply move forward. It wandered, lingering, reflecting, circling back with tenderness. Imagine stepping into a narrow Florentine street at dawn. When the first light gathers along the edges of the buildings, the stone walls, worn smooth by centuries of touch and weather, seem to hold echoes of the hands that once shaped them. Shadows fall softly into doorways where artists once carried their tools. A faint hint of pigment still clings to the wooden thresholds of old workshops, as though time refuses to let go of the memories embedded there. The street is quiet now, but if you listen closely, you can almost hear the whispers of past conversations drifting through the morning air. As you walk, the sound of your footsteps blends with the distant toll of a bell marking the hour. These bells have rung across Florence for generations, calling people to work, to worship, to gather and to reflect. Their sound becomes part of the city's memory, a gentle reminder of the lives that once moved through these same streets. You pass a small square where a fountain trickles calmly. Its water flows over sculpted stone shaped long ago by hands that are now only remembered through the legacy they left behind. Children play near the fountain, unaware that they are surrounded by history. Time folds gently around them, embracing past and present without distinction. In the heart of the city, new generations of artists continue to work in studios built atop older foundations. They study the sketches left behind by masters, tracing the lines with reverence. Their brushes move across fresh canvases, inspired not only by the beauty around them but by the presence of those who came before. Some feel the quiet pressure of stepping into such a legacy. Others feel comfort, knowing they are part of a lineage shaped by centuries of devotion. In these moments, time becomes a companion. It guides their hands, encourages their curiosity, and reminds them that creation is a dialogue that reaches far beyond a single lifetime. Strolling toward the river, you notice how the sunlight dances across the surface of the Arno. The water carries reflections of bridges and buildings that have stood through wars, celebrations, and countless ordinary days. The river has watched Florence grow, falter, and rise again. It has mirrored the first sketches of young artists and the sorrowful walks of citizens facing difficult times. Now, as it moves downstream, it carries the quiet hum of the city as a past with Italiano. The Arno becomes a pathway of memory, flowing steadily into the future without losing what came before. Around midday, the streets grow busier. Merchants set out their goods, scholars cross the squares with stacks of parchment, and families pass by on their way to daily tasks. Amid these movements, there remains an awareness of history woven into the city's fabric. People gather near chapels, adorned with frescoes painted generations earlier, pointing out details softened by time but still powerful in their beauty. Visitors pause beneath grand arches, marveling at the harmony of their proportions. These structures stand not as monuments to a distant past, but as living reminders that human vision, once realized, can endure. As the afternoon sun begins its slow descent, Florence becomes bathed in warm, honey-colored light. This is the same light that once illuminated the hands of great artists as they worked. The same light that inspired architects to design spaces filled with clarity and grace. You can imagine it touching the shoulders of sculptors as they carved marble, or glowing on the pages of manuscripts filled with new ideas. The city feels suspended between centuries, held in a moment where past and present share the same breath. When the evening arrives, the lanterns along the streets glow with soft golden halos. The voices of the day quiet into a gentle murmur as people return to their homes. Yet even in this calm, the presence of history remains. The walls seem to remember every brushstroke, every chisel mark, every word spoken in pursuit of understanding. Artists who lived long ago walk beside you in spirit, their dreams lingering in the spaces they once filled. The city carries them tenderly, allowing their presence to remain part of its soul. As night deepens, Florence grows still. The river reflects the moonlight, turning its waters into a ribbon of silver that winds through the heart of the city. Time feels slower here, as though it pauses in respect for all that has been created. The artworks born from this place continue to shine, not only in museums and churches, but in the imagination of anyone who walks these streets with wonder. The Renaissance lives on not as a series of dates and events, but as a living memory carried quietly by every stone, every shadow, and every echo of footsteps in the night. Florence, in this moment, stands as a testament to the enduring power of beauty and thought. Time wanders through its streets with gentle steps, gathering memories, honoring them and offering them softly to those who listen. The legacy of the Renaissance breathes here, woven into the very air, inviting each passerby to pause, reflect, and feel the presence of centuries resting peacefully within the city's embrace. There are places in the world where history feels distant, resting quietly behind glass or stored in the pages of books. Florence is not one of those places. Here, the Renaissance is not a memory sealed away in time. It breathes slowly and gently through every courtyard, every archway, and every narrow street that winds through the heart of the city. Even centuries later, its presence lingers like a soft echo, reminding anyone who walks these paths that beauty, once awakened, never truly fades. Imagine standing in front of the cathedral at dawn, when the first light settles across its marble facade. The colors white, pink, and deep green glow with the softness of a dream. The patterns formed with a care that feels almost human in its tenderness. This building, shaped by hands long gone, continues to speak to those who pause to look. It reminds you that the desire to create something enduring, something harmonious, is a part of us that stretches across time. The Renaissance breathes here in the way the shadows shift along the intricate carvings as the sun rises higher, painting the city in gentle gold. As you walk through Florence today, you might notice how the work of ancient masters blends seamlessly into everyday life. People gather in front of sculptures as if greeting old friends. Children sit on the stone steps of plazas, where thinkers once debated the nature of the world. A violinist plays beneath an archway, her music rising softly into the evening air, echoing through spaces designed to elevate sound and spirit. These moments feel timeless, as though past and present share the same quiet heartbeat. Inside museums and chapels, paintings from the Renaissance still hold their power. The faces captured on canvas seem to watch you with a depth that transcends centuries. Their eyes reflect the same emotions we carry now: wonder, sorrow, curiosity, hope. The colors, though aged, radiate with warmth, reminding you that the artists who mixed these pigments touched the world with an understanding that remains profoundly human. Their works invite you to slow down, to breathe a little more deeply, to notice details you might otherwise overlook. In this stillness, the Renaissance speaks through silence. Outside, the streets hum with the life of the modern city. Yet everywhere you look, fragments of the past rest quietly in plain sight. A stone column leaning against the exterior of a shop, a small fresco tucked into a corner where two streets meet, an old archway framing the sky. These details serve as gentle reminders that history is not something separate from us. It is woven into our steps, our thoughts, and the spaces we inhabit. Walking through Florence becomes an act of conversation with time itself. Even the river seems to carry the Renaissance within it. The Arno flows steadily beneath the bridges, reflecting the colors of sunset in long, shimmering trails. This river once mirrored the faces of artists walking home after long days of work, and it continues to mirror the faces of those who wander through Florence today. It has seen centuries of change, yet its movement remains constant, like a quiet reassurance that life continues to unfold, shaped by what came before. And beyond Florence, the Renaissance breathes in our modern world in ways both subtle and profound. Every time an architect imagines a building filled with light and proportion, the Renaissance is there. Every time a painter studies the way shadows settle on a human face, or a scientist seeks to understand the natural world through observation and curiosity, its influence emerges. Even in simple moments when someone pauses to admire the curve of a sculpture, or when a child picks up a pencil to draw, there is an echo of that time when Florence dared to believe that human creativity was boundless. As the day draws to a close and the sky deepens into shades of violet and blue, Florence settles into its familiar evening calm. Lanterns glow softly against the stone walls, casting warm halos of light that stretch across the streets. People wander slowly, taking in the beauty around them. Some walk with cameras, others with notebooks, but many simply walk with open eyes, letting the city speak to them in its own quiet way. The Renaissance lives in these moments, in the attention we give to what is beautiful, in the reflection we find in silence, in the wonder that rises when we see something crafted with love. When night falls completely and the city drifts into stillness, you can feel the presence of centuries gathering gently around you. It is not heavy or distant. It is soft, like a hand resting lightly on your shoulder. The Renaissance that began in Florence continues to breathe through everyone who looks at the world with curiosity, who creates with intention, who finds meaning in the meeting of light and shadow. In this calm, timeless night, Florence becomes a reminder that beauty never truly leaves us. It remains, carried through generations, waiting patiently for anyone willing to pause, listen, and step quietly into its embrace. As our journey through Florence draws to a gentle close, take a slow breath and allow the stillness of this moment to settle around you. The city we have walked through together, with its glowing rooftops, ancient stones, and quiet echoes of genius, now rests under the calm embrace of night. The river glimmers faintly as the moonlight drifts across its surface, and the soft murmurs of the day fade into a peaceful hush. Florence, cradle of the Renaissance, lies serene and luminous, as though holding centuries of dreams in its quiet heart. Let yourself imagine the streets now empty and bathed in shadow. Lanterns flicker behind shuttered windows, casting warm halos of light onto the walls where artists once traced their visions by candle. The breeze that slips through narrow alleys carries with it the faint scent of olive trees and old parchment, a reminder of the ideas that once changed the world. The city feels timeless in the darkness, steady and patient, as if inviting you to pause a little longer, to rest your thoughts and breathe with the slow rhythm of the night. If you linger in this stillness, you can almost sense the presence of those who shaped the world with their hands and their minds. Their footsteps echo softly in memory, guiding you through the places where creativity once blossomed. They whisper in the quiet air, not with urgency, but with a gentle reassurance that beauty endures, that the human spirit continues to reach for light even in the dimmest hours. In this calm, Florence becomes not just a city of the past, but a companion for the present moment, a place where reflection feels natural and rest comes easily. As you prepare to drift into sleep, let the images of Florence settle tenderly in your mind. The warm glow of morning across the Arno, the delicate hush of workshops at dusk, the patient curve of marble shaped by devoted hands, and the quiet pride of a city that dared to see the world anew. These memories do not ask anything of you. They are here simply to comfort, to soothe, and to remind you that even in the vast movement of history, there is always space for softness, for silence, and for dreams. Thank you for walking beside me tonight, for allowing your mind to wander through Florence's winding streets and rest beneath the embrace of its ancient light. If you feel like sharing where in the world or where in time you are listening from, I will read it with the same care the city once gave to its own stories. And if you wish to return for another night's passage into history, feel free to follow the channel. I'll be here, ready to welcome you back. For now, let your breath grow slow and steady. Let the images fade softly, like lanterns dimming in the distance. Let the night fall gently around you, wrapping you in calm. You have traveled far through time this evening. It is safe now to rest, to drift into dreams, and to let the quiet beauty of Florence keep watch over your sleep. Good night.